What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Mountain Witch Tarot channel. I am your host, Sarah, and we are doing Trump's Lenormand Grand Tableau. We are starting off with a few cards on the table. You'll see I'll get to those in just a minute. Before we get started, please take a moment, click that like button, and if you enjoy political divination, hit the subscribe, stick around. So what do we got here? We've got 6 cards on the table. We're going to focus on 3 to begin with. Sometimes when I do these readings, one thing I like to do is I like to do a little preliminary reading so that I kind of know where I'm going with things, especially at a time like now when there's so much uncertainty and everything is just kind of a big chaotic mess. So we're starting off with this top line here. My question was, what is the biggest next issue for Donald Trump in the month of September? What comes next? And I got the whip, the key, and the house. Now, if you've been watching for a while, you know that we do some political reassignments when we do these readings. So this is indeed the White House. So this line is telling us that the White House is going to be opened up to more criticism. So not new information. We've seen this, pretty consistently throughout. Well, the cards are telling us that it's not going to stop anytime soon. I did, however, go ahead and ask why. Clover, the lily, and the tower. This, I believe, is because of his overindulgence in his abuse of power in government. That was our answer to start with, so that's what we're going to kind of be looking for. So let me get these cards out of the way here, and I'm going to show you a couple of other cards, because for this round, we're going to do something a little different than we normally do. We've got some new assignments that I want to take a look at. So we've got these 3 cards I'm going to add to the deck. Now that means that we will have 3 cards left out by the time we finish the tableau. But I'm going to add the sick bed, I'm going to add the rapier or swords card, and I'm going to add the lightning bolt card. And we're going to use this one to denote political V. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? This one, of course, the sick bed, we want to know a little bit about Donald Trump's health, and I've got a list of questions we're going to look for answers to. I'll go over that in just a minute. And then with the lightning bolt, we're just going to use this to emphasize suddenness. But basically, like if these 2 come out together, this is going to indicate some type of abrupt something bad. If these 2 come out together, we're looking at some type of big health situation with Donald Trump. For just this reading, maybe the next one, but just this one for sure, we're going to reassign these 2 cards. This usually is the card for the administration. In this reading, this card is going to be JD. This card is going to be the card for the Epstein Files. All right, now that we got all that out of the way, let's go ahead and start laying out our tableau. We are starting with an entire tableau because I actually had to refilm this. Something happened, my camera kicked off. I don't know. I had some technical difficulties. So we're just going to go with it. And we're going to start at the top, and I'm going to kind of go through everything. Now, real quick, I want to tell you the 4 questions that we are looking for here. We want to know about Trump's health. We want to know about JD and like what's going to come of him, because he's been pulling some shenanigans here recently. We want to look at the fate of the Epstein Files. And we also want to kind of know if there's any indication of political violence in the foreseeable future. So let's start on the top line here. This top line is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We're focusing on talk, chatter, conversation here with the birds card. There is this sense of danger, warning, something unsafe, something that is bringing or causing anxiety. We've got a problem in government right here. And this is something Donald Trump probably wants to avoid because he doesn't know what it's capable of. There's also a good chance this problem is going to be kind of a stubborn obstacle that gets in the way of what he really wants or what he's hoping the most to achieve. But unfortunately for him, it is coming, and it is coming fast. So let's move on to the second line here. We've got Anchor, Fox, Bouquet. Now this one starts to get a little bit deeper, and we got Trump showing up in the center at the heart of his own reading. So that's going to come in kind of interesting here in just a second. So we're talking about a heavy situation that Trump has to navigate, okay, with these two cards. It's a situation that he's never been able to make the situation go away. And you know what this is already sounding like, right? He's had to adapt with this card here, with the Fox card. This is about like adapting and finding a way to survive. He's had to frequently adapt in order to overcome this problem. And the reason he keeps working toward this goal is that he is worried about his reputation and his happiness, okay? He doesn't want to have to face these situations. He wants to keep up this superficial appearance and the facade that he is the good guy, but there's like all this deceit here. And similarly, there are a lot of problems attached to this. So this is not just one big heavy problem. I feel like with the fish and the anchor coming in together, this is a whole bunch of problems that run really deep, okay? Then we have Donald Trump himself right here making his appearance, and guess what showed up next to him? We charged this card as the Epstein Files card because it is the card of burden and heavy problems and, carrying a cross around on your back. And I am so excited to see that this card is right next to him and he is at the center of the story here, because this makes me feel like somehow, some way, these files are going to claw their way back from the grave and come back to face him. And, I even really want to go so far, and this could just be me wishful thinking, okay? So take this with a grain of salt. But I would like to think that there is a final showdown coming. Now, my logic brain says, no, this is going to drag on for quite some time. It's, and we even have a reference here to a slow moving, slow progressing, lots of different directions, kind of meandering problem. But it's really amazing that we charged this card as the E-Files, and here it is right next to him. So I would like to think that this is a really good indicator that these things are going to come back hard and heavy. And, maybe they will. Maybe they will. And I'm starting personally to get really worried about the E-Files and how much attention people are or are not paying to the Epstein Files. So anyway, we've got this slow progress, lots of different pathways. It's, like I said, kind of this slow meandering situation. But also, we're kind of seeing him have to make a choice here too, because this is a card of choices and getting to a point where you have to go in one direction. You got to pick a lane, so this could be indicative that maybe this is going to come really hard at him here towards the end of September. Wouldn't that be great? So now it gets even more complicated and even more enigmatic. We got JD. Okay, we're on the third line with JD. We've got the lily and we've got the park. So my first thought when I saw this, there are several meanings clustered right here in this corner. First of all, let me just tell you that. I'm seeing like a ton of things. JD's patience and his public persona. I guess we'll start there. JD has been patiently waiting, hoping for his chance. And we're going to hop down to this line a little bit to try to explain what's going on here. He's been patiently waiting for his chance at fate. And he knows that the key to his hopes and dreams lies in the sick bed for Donald Trump. Okay. This, I also think, represents the podcast. This is him going into the public sphere to try to make a name for himself. So the lily card is, most of the time, it's a card of like peace. But look what popped up right here. This is our political violence card. We charged this card and we charged this card before the reading. And it's funny that we've got this and this and this. This line is really, there's so much here. I don't want to like ramble a lot and bog down. So I may miss a few things, but there's a lot here. So I instantly started thinking about that podcast that JD did where he went on and he talked about some really heinous stuff. He made a lot of incredibly, like, just horrific statements, right? So I feel like this is him going into the public sphere and pretending like he's calling for peace. I mean, there's even a reference to that here. But really, he knows that peace is not what he's calling for. This is a card of transformation, right? So think of a synonym here or like a similar meaning for the stork. He's calling for public peace in a secretive, transformative way that translates to violence, basically. Okay, and then we have the birch here, which is repeated action. I can see him doing this over and over and over again. I don't know if JD was much of a podcast bro and before this week. If he was, I'm not aware of it. But if he wasn't, I think he's going to be now. I think there is a hint here that JD is going to start making more of the trek into the public eye to try to pick up where, others will say in the past left off. Try to pick up the torch and carry it forward because he knows that he can kind of stoke this violence amongst the loyalists and grow something that is detrimental to everybody in society that is not them, if you guys catch my drift. So let's move on down here. There's still more to say, but we'll kind of work our way through it a little bit. There's a lot here. Hopes and dreams, but also metastasizing, spreading, networking. The key to something, opening up something. We got the sick bed. Now you remember we charged these two cards. This card represents an immediate, quick situation that leads to a sick bed or an illness or an ailment. Okay, and I think we are seeing something here where it is quickly revealed as well. There has to be some type of messaging about it. This right here, I feel like is pointing to something has to be admitted. Someone's going to have to come clean publicly because there's going to be something happen that they cannot hide any longer. And I think right above it, if we're just isolating cards, of course, the meanings change as we kind of move through the deck here, or the spread. This looks like a public event. So I don't know if this is coming up here towards the end, the last half of September. We may see this play out, over into the new month. But I definitely see a reference here, and it's a pretty bold reference to some type of public health event that happens quickly, and it opens up the doors for JD and what he is wishing upon a star for. And this is insane that all of this is here together, and normally I would not feel confident enough to make a bold statement like this, but this is really fascinating how these cards lined up this way. And especially considering, these three cards did not have to come out because these are the three cards that were left out, is the Clover, Coffin, and Bear. So, they had just as good of a chance of coming out instead, but we got our more interesting cards. Okay, so anyway, back to what we're talking about here. We also have the tree and the fate line. Now, remember I said I had to refilm this. I said something in the other version, which my camera wasn't even filming, so I was sitting here talking to myself. I kind of determined that if the tree card came out in the fate line, that would be a verification that the sick bed, that there was indeed a health event. And the tree card came out right underneath these two cards, and it came out in the fate line. Now, when we're looking at the fate line by itself here without, factoring in anything above it, we've got the reference to health, well-being, and then we've got the White House card because we reassign for this one. And then we've got confusion, some type of, I always think of like a hectic hullabaloo going on with the clouds when it comes to these political readings, because any little bobble in their plans could create a hectic hullabaloo. So that's what I always think of when I see the cloud card here. And with the ring card, we generally reassign this to like Trump's shadowy alliances. But I think in this circumstance, we probably could have just moved the administration to this card, since we moved JD to the administration card. You know what I mean? So I kind of get the sense that this is the administration, and some type of health event leads to a lot of chaos and hullabaloo amongst the administration and the White House. So that's what it looks like to me. Now, there is something else that I want to point out here, because despite all of what I've just told you, these cards, this sickbed and this public health event and this confusion, these actually showed up next to JD. They didn't show up next to Trump. Pretty weird, huh? So here maybe is a second interpretation. Just because I asked for these cards and charged them in advance to mean, or like indicate one thing, and just because this is a Trump-focused tableau, doesn't mean that these cards can't actually be attached to the other significator. So I think it's really peculiar that we didn't get like the sickbed up here next to Trump. We got it next to JD. I don't know if that means that maybe JD is the one that ends up with the health situation. Entirely possible. It could also mean that JD possibly could let something slip. If he's talking publicly and trying to build his name up publicly, who's to say he doesn't go on a podcast and accidentally reveal some type of information about Donald Trump having a public health event? Because listen, there have been several over like the past month at least, and probably longer than that, honestly. Trump has had public health situations. He had one all the way back in the spring at the Kennedy Space Center. They cut the microphones and the cameras and everything, and nobody knew about it. Nobody knows, unless you're really paying close attention to politics, that happened. So Trump has been having public health situations. They hide them very well. What if he lets it slip? What if he opens up and starts talking about it? And then that's what actually leads to creating this burst of chaos amongst the administration. So, like I said, there's a lot in this corner over here. We also, with JD's near circle, his comfort zone, which are the cards around him, we have the anchor, the fox, and the bouquet, which fed into this row here, has basically the same meaning for him. He's thinking about his stability, his best interest, and his happiness. So this is like right above his head. So all these things apply to him as well. Now let's hop back over real quick to this side of the spread. I want to take a look at the Epstein Files and the cards that are in the near. So we've answered most of our questions. We looked at JD. We looked at the health situation, which kind of looks like the health is attached to him. I don't know what that means, but we've looked at the political violence here, which, again, just to kind of reiterate that, loyalist, growing movement, repetitive actions, we're going to see some more stuff happen for sure. They may try to bury it. They may try to hide it, but there's going to be more. And if we're looking at the Epstein Files here, something really freaky that I want to point out to you is if you look at the comfort zone of the Epstein Files, Trump is in it. Loyalists and government are kind of standing on each side of the Epstein Files. Repeatedly blocked. So the last thing we're going to talk about here that I didn't cover yet specifically are the four corners the four corner cards, and the center of the story. And to me, it says one thing. The entire theme of this tableau, which means that the third week, or like at this point in September where we're at right now, all of Donald Trump's energy is going to be spent hiding messages of danger, or messages that are dangerous to him, and hoping to keep secrets, because he's got a lot of deep flowing situations going on that keep coming back up, but it kind of keeps changing as it moves along. And it's this. But the four corner cards and the center of the story align pretty much perfectly. He's just trying to keep this whole thing under wraps. He's trying to keep everything a secret. Things keep spreading. He wants to keep it locked up to where no one knows, but the information continues to be incoming quickly. It is dangerous to him. It is deep-rooted. It goes very deep, far below the surface. We only know the surface of the Epstein Files. He's working really hard to kind of like shift the narrative over and over and over. He's had to shift the narrative. And remember, this problem that's so big and heavy, he is learning to adapt in order to survive and to keep it at bay, because it's dangerous. He doesn't want to go too close to it. And that's, reiterated from every angle. Like, there are some really interesting diagonals in this, but essentially, if I sat here and covered them all, it's going to tell you the exact same thing over and over and over. And I've found that when a tableau does that, it's a lot of strong energy. So, really interesting tableau. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Sorry for the technical difficulties. It happens sometimes. I didn't want to scrap the video because this was such a good reading on him. But if you guys like this video, please click the like button. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoy political divination, please hit the subscribe and stick around and become part of the community. We would love to have you. And until next time, guys, I will see you later.